What's up, y'all? Thank you for tuning in to Playback Appeal. My name is Aaron.
I'm Sean.
And we are the Rap Geeks. Today, we got, and for another decade in review, Marshall Mathers LP. So before we start, we gotta let's talk about the album itself. It dropped May 23rd, 2000, exactly 10 years ago.
It 20 years ago. 20 years ago.
Oh, I am fucking not even in today right now. But
Yeah,
20
man.
years ago, thank you. So it dropped on Aftermath and Interscope Records. It was Eminem's third studio album following the Slim Shady LP and the Slim Shady EP. Whew, the year 2000, huh?
Hey, doesn't it make you feel old? Just like remembering, just thinking, damn, like this album really came out 2 years ago. 20 years ago.
It does. And I got to be honest with you. I never even really revisited this album until we decided to do this. And the last time I heard it was when it came out. I was on my CD player and I was 7 years old. And so hearing some of these sounds really brought back just that moment in my life, which is tripping me out as I was listening to it. I don't know if you had that same experience with it.
Definitely not, because when I was 7 years old, I don't think I was allowed to listen to Eminem, or it wasn't really in my CD collection, that's for sure. I think it was mainly Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, and the Muppets.
Yeah.
Man.
I like that. I like that.
And
man.
VeggieTales.
What?
Man,
I
know
thought that was
VeggieTales?
I know VeggieTales, but I thought that was like a generation after you. What?
Oh,
Okay.
Man.
I feel it though. Okay. So, so we're not gonna go track by track. You know what I mean? But let's go through the first song, which is pretty much a public service announcement. He generally has these public service announcements on his albums. And one thing that I noticed, and the energy, not energy, but what you notice in the very first track and every single song afterwards is there's so many little vocal ad-libs that you always hear. If you really pay attention to it, there's so many. There's a main vocal, and then you hear Eminem's ad-libs on the side. And so, that's something that you hear first off from the very first song. And so that's something that I really appreciated from this whole album. I don't know if you caught that.
No, for sure. And the thing about the ad libs is these are extremely well done ad libs, mainly because, or at least skits, because these skits are him doing impersonations of other people talking about him. And the really interesting thing is how degrading he is to himself in each of these skits. And that's almost the theme of the album, is him dealing with all this pressure and all this self-hate that he's going through. And
that's a theme. That's Eminem's theme. I mean, that's 8 Mile, essentially, right?
Yeah, it's almost as if this dude had to do that because he needed to get out every single potential insult that was going to be thrown at him before it does, just so he always has the upper hand.
Think about the pressure that he had at the time, I mean, there wasn't really... He was the only white rapper considered a rapper, because there were other people.
What about Vanilla Ice?
Look, man. That was that fool never got any respect until no, that fool never had respect, bro. But I promise you, that song slaps. Like, I was listening to it the other day. Ice Ice Baby. But also one thing that really kind of messed things up for Eminem was this was the boy band era. You know what I mean? And so at the time, Eminem was pretty much a pop star of the likes of a Justin Timberlake or Britney Spears, you know what I mean? And Christina Aguilera. And he talks about these people in this album. And, being in that space, you battle some kind of, I would think you battle credibility, you know what I mean? When you're in the pop space like that. So that fool had a lot of pressure on him. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, dude. I think generally, let's actually no. Let's get into the first song, "Kill You."
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
So, I think right off the bat, what makes the Marshall Mathers LP really stand out is, do you remember a genre called horrorcore? Like, are you familiar with it? Like, when I think
Yeah.
of horrorcore, I think of like Insane Clown Posse, and I'm in no way comparing the two, but
Right.
I think
Do you consider this album horrorcore?
yeah, I think it's as mainstream as a horrorcore album can go.
What
And
would mainstream, huh? So what
yeah,
would be the difference between this album and a 36 Chambers Wu-Tang Clan? Because they pretty much discuss very similar topics, but there's something. But I know on Wikipedia, this album is labeled horrorcore, but Wikipedia calls 36 Chambers hardcore hip hop. Now, what is that line between a hardcore hip hop and a horrorcore? Is it because he's white?
yeah. No, it's no, it's because I would have to say the lyrical content and what makes horrorcore different than hardcore hip hop is that these lyrics within the Marshall Mathers LP are very personal to him. It's almost as if he's really giving you a little view into what his life is like, and at least the thoughts he's having, and the fact that he's willing to be so vulnerable about these thoughts and willing to let you into his deepest, darkest thoughts is what really, rose Eminem to the pinnacle of hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into it, but like for instance, a couple songs like the one you mentioned, "Kill You" or "Kim," these are like songs that are just so vulgar and brutal, and it almost reminds me of like a more like a death metal type of theme to him, in that he's so willing to talk about how he's. I mean, the lyrics are crazy, man. Like he talks a lot about how sick of a twisted fuck he is because he rapes his mom and he wants to kill his girlfriend.
Yeah,
it's
but
crazy
part of me
stuff.
feels like that. I wonder if that came from the battle rap, his battle rap experience, right? Like if you're roasting a motherfucker live in front of all these people, you might end up saying some outlandish stuff like that because it's a attention grabber. You talk about a dude, you trash his outfit, you trash his mom, you trash his family, you trash his girl, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so I think part of that comes from that. And even that, I would mention that there's a lot of yelling on this album.
Oh, for sure, dude. And you know what? The yelling aspect, listen, I hate to be stereotypical, but it's something that white rappers do a lot. And it might be
well.
The Rock, and do well. I'll give him that. Aside from the newer era of yelling rappers like XXX Tentacion, it seemed like
What
for
was
a
that
while.
one cat? What was
Who's
that
the
one
one
cat
cat?
that did Denzel Curry?
And Denzel Curry. So give
Yep.
them those two in terms of the modern era, for sure. But even like stuff like Machine Gun Kelly, right? Even in general, whenever I think of like white rappers in general, they have this tendency to be overtly aggressive about their delivery, and it might be because they I just feel like they got a little less chill than African Americans. They're a little bit more pent up teenage angst going on.
Yeah, it's got to be. But I mean, I think there's something to say about no matter where a white rapper is from in America, they all come with that vibe. So, I don't want to, say maybe some suburban teen angst.
Yeah.
Because Detroit is Detroit. You know what I mean? We know.
Right, the dude's from a tough place, man.
Trailer park.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if the trailer park don't bring that out of you, I don't know what will.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So, getting back to the album itself, you asked me what your opinion was of Kill You, and do you have an opinion on it, or you just want to ask my opinion?
Oh no, yeah. So one thing that really stood out to me about that particular song is the production, and the reason why is it has this weird stutter. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. You know what I mean?
Right.
It does that, and if you sit and listen to it close to, for a while, it does get kind of tired, but at the same time, I think M did a wonderful job rapping on it, and every single second, and it's not just this song, but for the most part, every single second, something's going on. Again, whether it be a bar or an ad lib, and I think that was the intention for almost every song in this album. For the most part, there isn't a dry moment.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing just about this song in particular, but you see this in other songs, is this dichotomy of the playfulness of the production on top of the seriousness of his delivery, and just like it's almost like you're taking, like what you mentioned, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Like that is it almost sounds like that could be something that I hear at a circus, but then I'm hearing Eminem talking about how he's gonna fucking kill you on top of overlaid on top of this production.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, the playfulness in the production, because we'll get into this later, but for Bitch Please Part 2, if you listen to Bitch Please Part 1, it's the sounds change. It's essentially the same beat, certain melodies still, the like a variation of that still is, it plays in both of those tracks, but the synthesizer changes and the overall vibe changes, and anytime and it's funny because playful production is probably the best way to kind of put it for somebody like Eminem. The way that, and we'll get into that when we hit that, but the Real Slim Shady, the way that beat sounds, and a handful of other songs.
Yeah,
it's
what is that? There's some kind of horn instrument going on with the is that a horn instrument, I believe?
Are we talking about which song
on the Real Slim Shady?
I think it sounds like a medieval string instrument, and there's a lot of strings on this album, whether it be a guitar, obviously orchestra. I think Dr. Dre at the time, you know what I mean, he was heavy into orchestral instrumentation,
right?
And so I think that for that particular song, it's like some playful jester type of guitar. That is what it sounds like, or something like that. I don't even know the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was thinking about a different song. It might have been Who Knew.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking about it.
Right,
there is a song on here with horns, but yeah, so interesting that you bring it up. Dr. Dre as the primary producer of the album. You know what? To me, he used this album as a way to really expand upon what he normally produces, because I mean, didn't he just produce the Dre 2000 album? Around the time of this, but the production is nothing similar, and I think Eminem gave him a chance to really expand upon what he normally does, because he had such an experimental rapper to work with.
Right. Yep. My first round of listening to this, I was like, my instinct was, this feels like beats that didn't make the Chronic 2001.
I would disagree with that.
Yeah, right. And then I heard it, I listened to it some more, and then I listened to the Chronic 2001 and was like, okay, I don't agree with that, but there is something to say about that style that Dre pretty much had made, And so that was something interesting. Again, I don't agree that they sound the same or they're like leftover beats or anything.
Yeah.
But there's a distinct style that Dr. Dre pretty much made around that time. Yeah. So the next song, one of the singles, one of the more, probably I'd say one of the most popular Eminem songs. I mean, as far as I know, like out of his whole catalog of people that grew up with me.
Are you talking about Stan?
Yes, sir. Talking about Stan.
Right. Stan is, here's the thing. It's not one of the top, I don't even know. Is it a single? I don't even know if it's a single.
Yeah, it was a single.
It was a single. Okay, so Stan was a single. But it's, as far as like, I would say it's not as big as like The Way I Am or The Real Slim Shady, but definitely number 3 right there is Stan. And Stan is a track where, as you know, I think it's Dido. I'm going to say Dido. The original is so beautiful. It's so beautiful hearing the original. And then hearing Eminem on it, I was impressed how much justice he actually served on that track.
Oh, they did a beautiful job on this track. And even the whole album, a big part of why I actually really love this album is a reason why I really love Views by Drake. There's just so many there's so much ambient noise, and they do it really well. And especially for Stan, so much detail that Dre put into that song. I would think it's him. And what's interesting about a lot of these songs is the way it sounds when you listen to it at the lowest volume, just enough, literally like the first volume setting, you could
Right.
still hear almost every sound clearly. And one of Dr. Dre's techniques for mixing is he plays the song super loud, you know, and so how the song sounds loud and how the song sounds at its most quiet, you know what I mean? And so there's just something about that you, no matter what medium you're hearing the song, headphones or speakers, studio monitors, everything really goes through the track. Every single detail of the track really goes through. I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah.
As far as sampling a non-hip hop record, sampling something that's even more on the commercial pop side, even the more UK commercial pop side, Stan is the best example of how to do it correctly. And so big applause. One of my favorites off the album by far. It's such a good rendition that when you play the original, people think it's people assume that you're going to play the Eminem version before you play the original.
Yeah. That's how you know you did it right.
Right.
If you listen to here's another note about the song that I really appreciated was, as the story goes on in the third verse, and I want to talk about that, having
Right.
3 verses and a chorus. So after the second chorus, you got Stan recording himself in his car with his girlfriend in the trunk. And
yeah.
and if you caught it, the actual vocals, they sound different, right? So before he's rapping he's writing the letters in his room, and then you hear the scribbles in the background, you know what I mean, panned off to the right. You hear the scribbles as he's talking, and then in the third verse, the vocals start to get dry, and it sounds like he's inside of a car. And even below that level, you can hear windshield wipers, and obviously you got the rain going on, and so all of that surprisingly wasn't too distracting. And I think it really added to the song, the theatrics of the song.
No, it's always surprising how much attention to detail is put. Because here's the thing, man. A lot of these songs, the production is quite monotonous, just because that's just how hip hop was back then. You would just play you would just play the loop over and over again for the whole song. But
Right.
Dr. Dre, he's so finely attuned to the details that's what really makes this album so incredible, despite that some of these tracks are, they're loops. There's nothing really crazy going on in terms of the shift, but just as you mentioned, just that attention to detail is unparalleled.
Yeah. And so I want to get to this point before I forget, man. But
Go for
for
it.
almost every song in this album, they use the traditional song structure, which is so foreign in today's music. We're talking chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, and then maybe another chorus at the end. And having listened to this album front to back, that surprisingly enough, that didn't bore me or anything like that. And again, like every single moment, there isn't a dry moment in that album. Just
You never got bored from hearing the chorus over and over again. Like, that's so foreign in today's hip hop music, where choruses are so much less prevalent than they were back then. And when listening to this album, kind of reminded me, like, damn, what they really try to do is hit you hard with that chorus, to where even if you don't like the song, it's gonna stick with you because of the repetition of hearing that chorus over and over again. And Eminem's fluctuating vocals and his storytelling all on top of it just kind of gets you really stuck on this album.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that Eminem's such a personality, he's playing different characters. He's doing the choruses and the verses and the ad libs. He's doing everything, and so you couldn't. Not too many people can do that, to be honest. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, you mentioned about controversy, and to my understanding, this album is his most controversial, and a few of these songs are the really standout songs that makes Eminem almost seem psychopathic, and that kind of reminds me of the skit, the Paul Rosenberg skit, where he leaves a voicemail for Eminem and says like, "Yo, about this album, you know what? Never mind." Hangs up the phone because he knew that like there was a huge risk with this album because it might not be commercially acceptable. But the fact that he took this album and he made it so controversial, it helped him. It helped him skyrocket into fame that he did not have previous to this.
yeah, I don't know how impactful his last album was to this one.
And it's a good album. I don't you have you heard it?
Yeah, that was one of the first albums I heard, the Slim Shady LP.
Right.
One of the first albums in my life, one of the first rap albums in it. Hearing it as a kid, it was almost a little like scarring certain things, like because he has sound effects and he does weird things, and a lot of the things are sexual and you don't understand them. And I can
Right.
honestly say some of the things I heard again when I heard back this album and just thinking about it when I first heard it as a kid, just like thinking about how the awkwardness of how I felt hearing some of these, especially some of the skits later in the album.
Yeah, man. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, dude. The next song, Who Knew? Who Knew? Do you remember this? I never knew I. Did you like that song?
You know what? I do like it. I oftentimes look at albums and how they start and how they end, and I think once again, it's one of those things where I think the first half of the album is stronger than the last half of the album, and I don't know if that's on purpose, maybe because the latter half of the album gets way more personal, and it gets way more just like, well, more of the singles are on the first half of the album, but yeah, Who Knew? Great song. You got any opinions?
Yeah. I don't know if you felt this way about it, but when I was listening to it, some of the cadences and the rhyme schemes, it reminded me of Chance, and I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying it reminded me of acid raps, some songs that came out on acid raps, and as far as the rhyme scheme goes. And I don't know if Eminem played a factor in Chance's
Could be something
style.
about the Midwest, man. Just something about the proximity of Detroit and Chicago, and how stylistically. I mean, I'm not comparing the two, right? Chicago's been this totally on a different thing right now, but maybe at that time, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if Chance the Rapper had influence from Eminem. It's really hard to be Eminem because no one sounds like him, but to take little tits and pieces, yeah, I could definitely understand where you're coming from. That fast pacedness that you hear in acid rap a lot of the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was something for that particular song that really stood out to me. The production definitely does. It sounds like it on site. It sounds like Dre of that particular era. So that was dope. I don't even remember the Steve Berman skit. Dude,
I do. I think it's one of the, for me, it's something super memorable, just because. I mean, the guy trashes the album, and Steve Berman. It's so interesting. I wonder if these skits are real. Like, I mean, if they're not,
I'm convinced.
Who cares? You think they're real? You think these skits are legit?
Oh, well, no, but I thought that those were the real people.
Oh yeah, those are the real people. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Of course, you know what? What am I even saying? Of course they're fake, but still, just to paint that picture of like Steve Berman saying like, "Hey, this album is nothing. It's not gonna sell." Tower Records told me to shove this record up my ass, and then Eminem's like, "But," and then Steve Berman's like, "I can't sell this shit," and then right after that song, it goes straight into the most fire track on the whole album.
And
the
beat doesn't change. The beat doesn't really change. Obviously, the chorus comes in, and you got the bells coming in. It's such a theatrical song, and I was
piano.
doing push-ups when I was hearing this joint. And I tell you, man, that I was
Yo,
pushing,
this one
bro.
to me is the gym Eminem song, not "Lose Yourself."
Yep.
This one right here is the one where it's like,
Ooh.
I feel a little bit, adrenaline surging through me as I hear this, and
Yep.
it's a song about judgment, right? Like I almost feel like a lot of his theme is about judgment, but this song in particular is about people judging him, people not being like wanting distance, wanting to be himself, and just the song is his way of kind of repenting against that and showing his angst about it, and it's just beautiful, man.
And you know what, I swear this freaking song, I swear, could be a soundtrack. I don't know if it was a soundtrack of any movie, but this song is the story of the main character, you know what I mean, of any main character, the triumph.
Yeah, and what's funny about the song is they have that lyrics, radio won't even play my jam, and like I remember this one was pretty heavily played on the radio.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the only place I heard it.
Yeah, exactly, man.
And what's even funnier about this song is what he follows it with. And it's the silliest song, one of the silliest songs rap songs to ever come out. Probably next to Bitch, I'm a Cow. But one of the silliest rap songs ever, bruh. And this was the one, if I remember correctly, the music video is just all these blonde-headed dudes with a wife beater on, right?
Yeah, this song stylistically kind of reminds me of a track on his last album, which was My Name Is. And and he does this every album. Yeah. This guy has some kind of really playful, really punching at pop culture type of vibe, and that really goes viral. And for this album in particular, it was this track. But yeah, spectacular job of the transition from just how serious the last track was, The Way I Am, going into the real Slim Shady.
And I feel like this is where your interest in the album tapers off after this track.
No, maybe
no,
but maybe it tapers off for. You know what?
Because I doubt you like the next song, Remember Me, with RBX and Sticky Fingaz. I doubt you like that. I mean, you got to be a golden age purist.
I
like
thought it was. I thought it was like some discount Busta Rhymes that was on the song when I heard it.
And you know what? A Sticky Fingaz hit that same flow that Method Man did. The competitor whatever. You know what I mean? Like he started hitting that flow, and I was like, damn, who did that flow first? It's got to be Meth. It's got to be Meth. I don't even remember.
Dude, no one knows who Sticky Fingaz and RBX are. And
wait, was Sticky Fingaz on Def Jam Fight for New York? I think.
Oh, dude, he's okay.
Was he
okay? You know what?
He was the antagonist, right?
I've never heard him by himself, but on Onyx, I mean, to feature him made a lot of sense, just because Onyx as a group, they really pioneered this kind of sound, this kind of horrorcore type of sound. So that was cool. But yeah, I would have preferred if they just had the whole group on there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't really messing with Remember Me. Just, I don't even know what type of track that was intended for. The song, then the next song that.
You know what's funny is I remember you said, hey, we're not going to go track by track, and look where we are, bro. We're going track by track.
Well, before you cut me off, I was about to skip all of these tracks and go right into the song that every 90s rap album had. Was a skit. And guess what that is? A skit that has a blowjob in it. Every 90s rap album had a blowjob skit.
You're talking about Kaniff?
Yeah, and every time I hear it, I skip it immediately. That makes me so uncomfortable. Yeah. I hate that he did that, but it's funny that he did, but I hate that he did it.
Yeah, that is
and that's the shit that scarred me. Wait,
that's funny. Ken Kaniff is one of the members of Insane Clown Posse. And
oh, for real? I hear him. He dissed those fools heavy in this album.
For sure. And you know what's crazy?
About that beef.
You know what? They're also from Detroit. Did you know that? that ICP is from Detroit.
Did no research on him.
Dude, at that time, Insane Cloud Posse was huge, man. Like, they were doing Woodstock. They had the I think they're called the Gigolo. I mean, dude, they
Gigolos,
have
yeah.
It's the Gigolos, right? It was the
Juggalos.
or the Juggalos.
Juggalos.
I don't know, bro. If it's the Gigolo or the Juggalo or the Jaggalo.
Alcoholics.
But they had a huge fan base. The song is very disturbing. It's well, I mean, it just depends on your sexual orientation, but the song is basically Kaniff getting a blowjob, and then him. And I don't know, by like multiple guys, and
I don't know what the point of that was.
This album has a lot of homophobic tendencies, like a ton. So many.
Is that
references.
homophobic? Well, you know what?
I think it is,
dude,
man.
In the '90s, gay jokes were everything. You know what I mean? Especially for at least most kids growing up. Just you say anything is gay. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
No, of course. I'm just saying at the time. You know what? It took a Tyler the Creator. It took a Tyler the Creator to really open up the spectrum of what's considered acceptable in hip hop.
Yeah, and I did think about Tyler as I was listening to this album. The way that they tackle the issues with the family. You know what I mean? With Tyler, it's mainly his dad and stuff.
Right. Just that absurdness. That absurdness of willing to go in a direction where you put the listeners on a very uncomfortable journey is something that I think Tyler the Creator might have been inspired by Eminem to do.
Right. Man, we'll get into that after this one, but let's talk about Bitch Please Part 2. Let's talk about it, man.
Yeah, all-star roster,
yeah,
but
bro.
Not an all-star song for me. I'm just saying. Yeah,
in this album or in general, like as far as
general, it's just in terms of like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Xzibit, Nate Dogg, and Eminem.
Yeah.
It just, the expectations are so high for that. I mean, I don't know. Xzibit's not really, I knew that guy from a car TV show. But
I mean, tell me he didn't snap though. Tell me he ain't snap on this one.
No, he has a tendency to. I mean, the guy was a legit West Coast rapper, and that's cool. That's actually something that I thought about is because of his alliance with Dr. Dre, he was so much more in the discussion being geared towards a West Coast hip hop cat as opposed to an East Coast hip hop cat, even though he's from Detroit. Right,
yeah. Corrupt and Xzibit are the most famous West Coast rappers not from the West Coast.
You
know,
yeah, where's Xzibit from? Yeah, where are they from? Oh, Xzibit's from Detroit. The Xzibit's from Detroit.
Okay. Yeah. But Corrupt, I think he's from the South or something. I don't even know.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, no. I mean, dude, this freaking track, dude. And then Nate Dogg on the hook.
Well, that guy never disappoints. Nate Dogg on the hook, always good, even if the track isn't good.
Right. And the thing, anytime Dr. Dre puts Eminem and Xzibit on a song, it's always fire. I've never heard a bad song where Eminem and Xzibit is on it.
Well, name more than two.
Hey, that's 100%. As far as I'm concerned, there's no miss. That's a hit and a hit. You know what I mean? But that particular song, it really brings me back when I hear it, and it reminds me of that time frame. I mean, do you remember the movie The Wash with Dr. Dre and Snoop?
Oh man, I haven't seen that in so long.
And Eminem was in that movie too, and that came out a year after the release of this album, and around the time of Dr. Dre, the Chronic 2001 came out, and I mean, that
movie was ridiculous, bro.
The score of that movie.
Yeah.
Sounds just like 2001 and the Marshall Mathers LP. And again,
I don't know. I haven't heard the score. other than
Right,
watching
right. No,
it live.
I watched a couple clips on YouTube of the wash after. Just I just missed that. It's one of those silly movies, you know what I mean? Snoop still does silly movies like that with Wiz and stuff, you know.
Yeah, where is that thing filmed? I think I used to live by it.
Yeah, you might have.
Yeah. I think the filming location was in South Central. And I
It's
remember
gotta be because
yeah. And I used to live right by that. I mean, if it's still, I mean, for all I know, it could be a totally different wash, but there are a lot of car washes in South Central. Probably because guys need to clean up their shit after jacking a car.
hey, that part, you know what I mean? After a little lick. You know,
Hitting some licks.
you need an alibi. Yo, my car was at the wash. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I like that song for that. It's super nostalgic. Yeah, man. Love it. And it goes right into one of the more emotional songs. I got, as I was listening to it, I almost wanted to stop it because I was like, Jesus, this is a vulnerable ass song. And so I stuck in there just so I can have something to say about it. But if honestly, that song was deep. That song really hit. He talks about
and Kim
the same
is his
things.
is Kim his ex-girlfriend? Let's just clarify that.
His
Who is Kim?
His baby mama, his wife, ex-wife,
His
baby mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Haley's mom.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Dude, so let's just give the readers a little picture of what's going on. So Eminem has a song called Kim where he takes Kim to an unspecified location and basically is planning to do a double suicide homicide with her. And she starts screaming for mercy. And Eminem makes fun of her because they're in the middle of nowhere, and he starts screaming for mercy anyways. And then he plans how he's going to kill her, whether he decapitates her, slashes her throat.
Yeah.
It's a very disturbing song, and by far, to me, one of the most songs just filled with hatred in all of hip hop in general. And yeah, I mean, listening to this is not very pleasurable of an experience, but for some reason this song always comes up whenever people talk about songs you listen to after going through a breakup. I hope not, bro. I really hope not, cuz I remember going on YouTube after my first major breakup and like YouTubing songs to listen to, like hip hop songs, and this song's always at the top, but
No way.
I don't know, man. Yeah, for sure.
Damn, I was listening to Keith Sweat after a breakup. That's my
Oh,
go-to.
well, I mean, we handle things differently. So.
Yeah, man. That one. These last songs. Well, the Under the Influence song with D12.
Yeah.
Listening to that, it reminded me of the albums that came after. You started doing a lot more music with D12 afterwards, and part of me feels like, for him, D12 rapping with D12 might have been one of his greatest joys at the time. You know what I mean? It's one of the only times where, well, not the only times, because obviously he's silly in other songs, but him messing around with the boys on a rap song, you know what I mean? I love listening to that, just to that energy. You know what I mean? Especially all D12, they all come with that same energy of, I'm gonna do this to your mom, to your wife, you know what I mean? I'll call my dad homosexual, slurs, you know what I mean? Just that energy. It's funny. It's silly.
Yeah, I mean, D12, what's interesting is I think D12 maybe inspired Eminem to actually have his own record label, like Shady Entertainment or Shady Records, just because he knew he wanted to sign artists in Detroit that had what I guess he was trying to form a Detroit sound at that time. Very guttery, very harsh, very street, very fight music. That's a song by D12. But I don't know. I never felt like Shady Records really popped off. I mean, is Tech Nine maybe the biggest artist that they've ever had?
Yeah. It's got to be. It's got to be. I honestly don't know any other artists on Shady Records. The only thing
Well,
I
it's like
know.
Obi Trice, D12.
Oh yeah, of
Proof
course,
was
for
on
sure.
it. Tech, probably a couple Brother Lynch. I would think that Brother Lynch Hunt is probably on it too. I have no clue.
Right. And so probably I don't know that because that's not even my scene. I think that their
Yeah,
particular scene, they're heavy in it.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
only listen to Obi Trice. That's about it. No
yeah.
name, no
And
gimmick.
I'm not
Real
a
name, no
fan.
gimmick.
I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of horrorcore in general, like Grave Diggers and Onyx and uh, it's just it's. I feel like it's so try hard. A lot of the horrorcore. But I respect it because these guys probably have a lot of
Yeah.
fascination with the occult and with movies like
Yeah.
classic horror movies. So I get it, but it's just sonically, it's just not the type of thing I really get into. And Eminem is kind of where that line is drawn for me as far as enjoying this type of hip hop
Yeah.
and not diving into it at
It's
all.
it's interesting, man. I mean, as far as the lyrical content of Eminem music, for the most part, I can't say I gravitate towards his lyrics or anything like that. But anytime he's rapping, it always grabs my attention. I mean, he was rapping a little bit on the wash. You know what I mean? I got a
Right.
motherfucking Glock, and I'm coming on your motherfucking block. You know what I mean? And he's yelling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that, for some reason, that's hard. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe those kind of lyrics only sound dope a cappella. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Yeah.
But as far as making a whole song out of it, yeah, sure. I guess it is try hard, as you put it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's awkward to me. Yeah. Um. Yeah, man. For me, the album as a whole, some songs that stand out to me is "Kill You," "Stan," uh, and "The Way I Am" and "Bitch Please" too. Those two were my highlights. I could put those in some playlists. You know what I mean? Gym playlists for sure. And the cool thing about those songs is actually one thing about the whole album. If I can just talk about how it sounded. Um, we are so conditioned in today's music for heavy 808s. And this
Right.
song, I felt it was lacking. And I'm not saying it does lack, but I am saying in most people's speaker systems, we're talking about a car, just some regular old headphones. Um, you don't really get to enjoy this music, I think, from what I think Dr. Dre intended you to. Because again, he mixes it at super loud volumes, which isn't practical for people. And this music, I think he intended to mix it to be able to sound good in the club. And that's why the music sounds clean. You know, each sound doesn't have much of a tail end. Like, especially if we were to talk about that "Kill You" song, where we were just talking about how it kind of stutters. Whereas with 808s, it goes ooh, ooh, ooh. There's always a frequency playing at every single moment when you got 808s going because it's got a tail to it. And so hearing this song, a big part of me felt like it was missing a body, but I don't think it is. I'm just saying today, the music that we hear today, there's a lot of meat going on, at every moment as far as the production goes.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't agree. And the reason I don't agree is because I think this album, you got to think about this, right? What was the average consumer in the year 2000 using to listen to music? This was a transitionary period where
iPhone.
it was going from cassette and vinyl and CDs were becoming the primary, right? Think
Yeah.
about this. CDs themselves are very high quality, but the kind of headphones people had, these cheap
Right.
clunks of plastic that people were
Yeah.
were wearing, the punchiness of the bass as opposed to hard hitting 808s works well, because these songs work well enough to where if I wanted to play this off my phone speaker, it would be totally acceptable, because the music is sonically very clean, and so it doesn't have so much distortion going on, and that even works well with Eminem's vocal range as well, because his vocal range is one that just sits on top of everything, as opposed to really being part of the song. It really just, there's the song, and then there's Eminem pretty much blastering the song.
Yeah. Right. That one thing that I think, and I say it felt like it was missing that body to it, was because, and here's the key factor, is nowadays a lot of our music has a lot of sub frequencies, and that adds to that meat that I was trying to describe earlier. In this, you have acoustic bass, you know what I mean, and then your kick drum, like you said, you can hear it. You can hear the kick on, if you're playing it on a phone, if you're playing it on your laptop speakers, or something or those cheap headphones that they used to use back in the 2000s that would come with your Sony Walkman. You know what I mean? Those weren't high fidelity headphones. You know what I mean? And so, for sure, this was probably one of the best sounding songs, best sounding albums of that era. You know,
Right.
But maybe I'm just spoiled now with the music that's going on today. But yeah, I felt like there's just something missing to it. But that was just the style of, the music back then.
Yeah, man. So many. What I love is just Dr. Dre's propensity to use instruments that just are so non-traditional in hip hop, like the chime, like the bell, like the gong, like the glockenspiel. Like, this guy is going through an assortment of instruments that just like are so unorthodox for hip hop, and yet because Eminem is so unorthodox, it's such a nice combination. And there really is, not saying Dr. Dre is not a phenomenal rapper himself, but like as far as producer rapper duos go, I mean, Eminem and Dr. Dre is really as good as of a relationship, as good of like symbiosis between two beings of musicality go, in terms of just how well they click, man.
They do. And whenever I think about that duo, there's so many other songs that were on other albums that were a Dr. Dre Eminem collab that I want to talk about. Just because, I don't know, them two together, like, who'd have thought? You know what I mean?
It's like, the very best.
I mean, it is. It is, man.
Dr. Dre, his production shines. His production truly shines the most on this record. I give him that.
Yeah, and I do think just it was all perfect timing, man. It was just a perfect storm. Jimmy Iovine discovering Eminem and bringing him to Dre. I mean, he could have brought Eminem to anybody. He literally could have brought Eminem to anybody. Right. Or Dr. Dre could have easily written him off for just being white.
Yeah, I mean? let's get into that. Let's end it on, the elephant in the room. Eminem's, the fact that he is white.
Yeah.
I thought about this. What I thought about was, did that help his career, or was that detrimental towards his career? And this was my consensus. My consensus is that, on one hand, he was white, and that made him different. So he stood out. So when consumers of hip hop, which are primarily Caucasian, see a white rapper, it makes them so much more geared and drawn into this scrawny looking wife beater with giant sweatpants and a backwards visor. I mean, he had a real street type look to him. And that was gravitating, and his image was gravitating. His look was gravitating because he looked so different. At the same time, I think there are a lot of people in hip-hop, when they talk about who the GOATs are of hip-hop, yes, Eminem has been mentioned frequently in a lot of Mount Rushmores. But if I was to compare this to basketball, he's like Shaq. That's the only way I can say it. He's been dominant for so long in the industry in hip hop. He's always there. But he's never going to be considered one of the best. And in terms of like a top four. But he's been dominant for so long, and it's hard to argue against that. And he's so fast of a rapper. And so he relies on the speed. He relies on his ability to storytell. And he relies on his very unique production to catapult him into the conversations of who are some of the best rappers of all time.
He relies on his speed. I don't know if I can agree with that, man. I mean, that might have been a new thing. Honestly, I mean, again, I really don't listen to Eminem nowadays, but it's like, think about a guy like Eminem who has mastered the craft of rap.
Right.
And where else can he go? He's hit every style already in the 90s that you could already think of. And then obviously fast rapping ain't a new thing, but you mix a Twista style rapping with a Eminem rhyme scheme, and you get rap god. You get Eminem. You know what I mean? You get those I don't even know the technical term for it, but having two rhymes in one line and then offsetting rhymes, as they go. I'm sure somebody already dissected this on YouTube. You know what I mean? But you take that, and that's where he's at right now. That's where you go if you rap your whole life and master a particular craft.
Right.
And I can't say that, he's relying on it. I mean, I don't even think he's trying to be anything other than better than before. And this is where he landed.
No, the way he treats hip hop is a craft, and it's amazing. It's almost like every time I hear Eminem, it's like I'm watching Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
When he's boxing. Yeah. It's like the dude has studied the craft so well
right.
to know every single intricacy of how to deliver a rhyme.
I'm able, when I talk about Eminem, I'm able to separate the craftsmanship with the art that he makes with that craft. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd pay to watch Eminem rap battle people a cappella.
Right.
And
that helped him. His as you mentioned, his rap battle career made a huge influence on why he's so good.
Yeah, for sure. Rap battling myself growing up, I know for a fact has really helped my rapping tenfold.
Oh, I didn't even know you rap, dude.
Dude, I grew up in middle school rap battling, bro. Literally, like, people, crowding around the lunch table and, just making fun of some dude that was, and keep in mind, in middle school, I was 4'5", 4'8" at most. And I'm rapping against these big old, these dudes probably twice my size at the time. But I was getting it, bro. I miss those days.
Yeah, man, middle school for me was literally real battles, like real dudes fighting outside the locker room and people putting money on who's gonna win. I mean,
Damn.
People willing to put up to $5, bro, like up to $7.
So you're telling me 12-year-olds were betting?
Oh, for sure. For sure, bro. Whatever lunch money you had, bro, you would bet on the guy who you think is gonna win the fight. And we didn't really do battle rap. We did actual fights in middle school. Mind you, I went to a middle school with uniforms too. I don't think that did anything.
That's usually where it happens, man. You know what I mean? Oh man. All right. Any last thoughts about the album? Anything you wanna say about it? You wanna trash it? You wanna support it?
I'll say this. Next month is gonna be the actual 10-year anniversary of Recovery. If you guys, the listeners, want to see us review Recovery, which in many ways was considered Eminem's triumphant comeback album, especially when he got great artists such as Rihanna. If you want to see that, leave us a comment below. And we also want to know what you guys think of the album as well. I mean, we give our opinions, but our opinions don't mean much compared to the grand scheme of all his listeners. We want to know, is there any classic albums you want us to review? Is there anything you thought about this album that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about? We always respond back to comments, so that would be well appreciated. And you know what? If you're going to be listening to this album, make sure you share this too with anybody that's going to be listening to it with you.
Yes, sir. On that note, let's close this. Come chat with us. Hit the comment section. Tell us what you think of the album. Tell us what you think about what we thought about the album. And we'll see you next time. Rap Geeks.
Peace out.
Peace.